has a framework where one part of it is the rivers. We look at the rivers at the catchment basin. And since the administration does not look at the river catchments, we are also looking at the regions. So we have two things, the rivers and regions. So what I shared so far was rivers. And this is the region. The region is Bengaluru urban is the one that we are looking at. So we have the hydrology map of Bengaluru, rivers of Bengaluru, and already a detailed assessment and analysis of Bengaluru hydrology is also out there on our website. So now the very latest release is the detailed stressors map of Anekal. The picture next to it is here to show that there has been, from the past 6 to 8 months, there has been extensive ground surveys, talking to a lot of activists, Gram Panchayati members, TMC members, and also participating and trying to understand what the industry's perspective is. A lot of that work has gone in for us to build and get an understanding of these stressors map of Anekal. And we were inspired by one of the NGT orders. The NGT orders, this is the 351 polluted river stretches. Central Pollution Control Board in 2018 declared that India has 351 polluted river stretches, of which Arkavati is one of the polluted river stretch. And the National Green Tribunal passed a wonderful order saying to the governments, to the chief secretaries of each state, saying, identification of polluting sources, including drains contributing to river pollution, map showing polluted river, its tributaries, drains, major towns, industrial estates, location of STPs, CETPs. So this was the kind of information that the government had to put together to understand what needs to be done. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. These directions were not complied by the states, but what we did was, we took those directions seriously and we did that. So that's the reason you see the map, the way it exists today is inspired by the NGT. And it was an understanding of the citizens that we cannot wait for the government to do this. We should just take it up ourselves and do it. And that's where it is in this context that I want us to see the Anekal map. This is Anekal. Anekal is a taluk of Bengaluru urban. It is outside the BBMP area. The Hosur corridor, Jigani industrial area are all part of Anekal. As you can see here, it is in the Dakshina Pinakini basin. Dakshina Pinakini is a river that starts in Nandi Hills, passes through Bangalore and flows into Tamil Nadu. Like he said, this Anekal area, this is the beginning of Tamil Nadu right here. And it passes to Tiruvannamalai. Dakshina Pinakini is a drinking water source of Tiruvannamalai, where Ramana Maharshi's ashram is there. And finally, it joins the Bay of Bengal in Pondicherry. So 77% of Anekal Taluk is in the Dakshina Pinakini basin. And above the Dakshina Pinakini basin is the Bengaluru. It also drains into the Dakshina Pinakini river. There's much non-biodegradable pollution coming out of both Bengaluru and Anekal into the Dakshina Pinakini river basin. You see, this is Bengaluru urban. This is the BBMP area. There's a very little of Anekal in the BBMP area. And when we consider regions, Anekal as a region, we have the base layer as watersheds. So we have identified 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 watersheds in the Anekal region, and the largest of which is the Chinnar watershed. Now, what this map shows you is, first of all, it identifies and names all the water bodies, lakes in the Anekal region. More important is the rivers of Anekal region. So Bangalore has a very active lake access. In terms of the lake connectivity to the river itself does not exist. The information does not exist. So we were the first ones to kind of say in Anekal, there is a river called Chinnar. And this Chinnar, on this Chinnar river is these bigger water lakes, Henagara, Muttanalur and Bidarguppe are built. And this Chinnar river is a tributary of Dakshina Pinakini. Here is where Chinnar joins Dakshina Pinakini in Tamil Nadu. So this is your border. This is Hosur Road, as you can see right here. And this is Electronic City. Much of the drainage, as you can see, the sewage and other wastewater comes from Electronic City and joins Rayasandra and Gattahalli. Anyhow, so what you see here is that the lakes also have custodians. So the green are minor irrigation, custodianship of the minor irrigation. The blue come under the Panchayat Raj department, Zilla Panchayat. And you have few lakes here which come in under the BBMP jurisdiction. So this map shows how the lakes are connected and what lakes come under whose jurisdiction. There are also roads down here to show, give kind of a reference to where the lakes and the roads are with respect to the lakes. And then what this map also shows is Bannerghatta National Park. Bannerghatta National Park forms a big part of Anekal. And unfortunately, when we mapped, these are the quarries. These are open pit quarries for stone. Much of the nature of this part of Arkavati Basin of Anekal has the stone, and Jigani is actually known as the granite city. Much of this granite is one of the biggest exports of Anekal. And you can see that much of these quarries are unfortunately inside the national park, which is a protected area. So this is what the kind of the map in terms of stressors, both to the catchment and also protected areas that we can see. And then this is your Jigani industrial area, Jigani Bommasandra industrial area. And then you say Atibela industrial area here, and a little bit of Electronic City and Veerasandra industrial area here. So industries are the lifeline of Anekal's economy. There is no doubt about it. And more so, Anekal is the hub of pharmaceutical industries and chemical industries. As classified by Central Pollution Control Board, Anekal hosts 13 pharmaceutical industries which produce active pharmaceutical ingredients, where a little bit of these active pharmaceutical ingredients get into the surface water, then that water is polluted. And in this area, based on our survey and know-how for the past few years, we have been working with the activists in Anekal for the past few years, is that pharmaceutical pollution is rampant in this area. And you see the Chandapura Lake here on Chennar. And Chandapura Lake was in the news because NGT, National Green Tribunal, put a fine of 500 crores for the pollution of Chandapura Lake by the government. As you can see, the drainage to the Chandapura Lake actually is from the industrial area. As a matter of fact, there's nothing more in terms of built up in the Anekal industrial area other than the industrials and the associated supporting of the industries. So this is the land use land change. Here you can see, if I take out grassland, wetland, permanent water body, shrubland and tree cover, you see this is the built up. So you are looking at what you're looking at is the European agency's Sentinel data, world cover data for 2021. So you're looking at the built up area of Anekal. When you look at the built up area of Anekal, you can see that much of the built up area is in the industrial area. So when the government submitted its report based on NGT's directions, it completely sidelined the industrial pollution issue. It's kind of major narrative was sewage is coming from industrial Bommasandra township. Hebagodi is a city municipality. Hebagodi CMC. It's coming from these two TMCs. Is these two municipalities is the major narrative that government submitted to NGT, which obviously based on what we are seeing is quite false. They did at some point, at a very minor point, acknowledge that one of their water testing did indicate the pharmaceutical ingredients were present, and that they would look into it, and that they monitored the industries on a regular basis, but there was no action that came out of it to hold the industrial pollution accountable here. See the drainage clearly coming from the industrial area to Henagara. From Henagara, it goes through the Chinna River, it enters Chandapura. From Chandapura, it goes into Muttanallur. From Muttanallur, it goes into Bidargoppe and flows into Tamil Nadu. Here, this map also is significant for us to understand and be able to take the government's decision making and put it under the scanner of science, I would say. So this activity can very clearly tell us where the sewage treatment plants are located, where the industrial effluent treatment plants are located, where are the drainages coming from the industrial area, as you can see here, and what is a major stressor of this water body. And Anekal, when we were sitting in a meeting with Zilla Panchayat, this was during the COVID, almost when the lockdown of the COVID was over, where the executive, Taluk Zilla Panchayat officer was in the meeting, and the revenue was there in the meeting, of revenue department of Anekal was also there in the meeting. They were talking about some of the lakes that had rejuvenated. When we looked deeper, we saw that Anekal had the most number of lakes of all the taluks in Bengaluru urban, and it also had major number of lakes rejuvenated. So what does rejuvenation mean? Unfortunately, most of the rejuvenation means that the water coming into this particular lake, there's a diversion channel that's built, so the wastewater that enters the lake does not enter but goes downstream, right? So you're basically disconnecting the lake from the river ecosystem to prevent, to restore the lake, right? The lake is being restored because it is polluted. So whatever pollution that's entering in terms of wastewater and solid waste is just diverted downstream. So when all such, Kitaganahalli is one such lake where the diversion has happened. So that means this industrial area drainage now directly comes to Chandapura, which is the lake that NGT fined. Then the new diversion that has happened this year, last year, is Yarandahalli. Yarandahalli diversion resulted in a lot of black muck. This is the silt that gets that's there in the drains and that gets accumulated over time. Lot of that muck during very small rains of April just came on the road and it flooded the community right here. So the diversion in the name of lake restoration pushes the problem of pollution downstream, where the pollution is not addressed at the source of pollution. Then second, it is also the beginning of floods, because we have not estimated during rains how much water actually flows in runoff. I would say, I wouldn't call it water, it's basically urban runoff, industrial runoff flows in those drains. Are the drains capable, which are streams basically, when I say the drains, they are streams, are they capable of handling them? And especially when you take out of the equation a whole lake, which would actually take those flood waters, what is the impact? So these decision makings of the restoration plans, or the decision of the government to bring treated, partially treated wastewater from Bangalore, they're filling up Gattahalli, Huskur, Singena, Agrahara. This is a minor irrigation project for reuse of treated or partially treated wastewater from Bangalore. So what is the impact of that in terms of flooding in the area, in terms of pollution in the area, in terms of restoration of water bodies? Is the overall analysis that these maps as a foundation helps is where we are. So in addition to these maps, I do also want to show you our newest release, which is the release that we did today. This is Pani.earth website. If you click interactive map, it brings here to the interactive map. These are all the lakes of Anekal. And here you could see, click on minor irrigation, you'll see minor irrigation lakes, click on Zilla Panchayat, BBMP. It gives you the lat long as well, and you can hover and it gives you the names, much more easier to interpret, and you can zoom in to see what's happening here. What are the characteristics that's around Chandapura? This is Chandapura Lake. So this is an added layer for citizens to look at. And of course, this is a very basic prototype and we're going to build on this further. This is another layer for citizens to kind of build up and say, on this layer, we are going to put land use, land change, and what is the insight that we can draw that gives us as an outcome for us to ask the government. Like if we were to load this sort of a land use, land change, and then say tree cover, right? When I click tree cover here, what we can see is that the tree cover around the built up area is less. So this built up area here, what we are seeing is industrial area, and as part of the environmental clearance for industrial areas, there's a 33% green cover. So we obviously don't see a 33% green cover. So this is what the citizens can ask, is that can the environmental clearance conditions be actually, can it translate to the ground, right? And another thing is Amrit Sarovar mission, 75 years, you know, there was a lot of desilting work and the tree cover around the lakes. So we don't really see much tree cover around the lakes, but we do see tree cover in the lake. I don't know how the lake usage in Anekal, this is in particular to Anekal, has a lot of tree cover on the lake area, but not outside of the lake area as a border, as a buffer zone. So all of these can be evaluated using the land use, land change when it is integrated with maps like this. And so that's the power of these maps. And what we have currently are the basic foundational aspects of it, and we will add more to it as we go. And this map as an analysis for us for future analysis is for us to look at which are the locations, lakes and river locations that Pollution Control Board monitors, and what kind of water quality parameters do they monitor. For example, we already know that much of the river is, there are no river locations. There are some lake locations, but when the lake locations are measured, and especially when they are in the industrial area, when they have industrial impact, what is called as a chemical oxygen demand, which is indicator of chemical pollution, is not measured at all. So we don't have that data to draw in. So these are the kind of things that we will be able to identify as further analysis because of these foundational maps, and be able to give feedback to Pollution Control Board, be able to give feedback to the town municipality, to the district administration who is responsible for the quality of these rivers, to kind of say, this is our ask. Can we do this? All of this is kind of coming out of this map. And also to be able to critically look at the response of the government in the case of Chandapura Lake, which is a submission that they made to NGT. We would be able to identify, and we are in the process of writing a report which gives the very specifics of what's happening in Chandapura, what the stressors are, which via the citizen activists hopefully will reach NGT for better directions and work by the government. So what we are seeing when we spend quite a bit of time last month in National Law School talking to different professors and the environmental department there. So they would, it was Professor Nandimat, he mentioned one thing. So with all of this, what we are looking at is, you're looking at judicial justice, but there's also something called as executive justice. Executive justice is the government. So with this data, we take it to the government, and both of us at least are on the same page in terms of understanding, and that the citizens can push for executive justice. Because judicial justice is not something all of us can afford, but executive justice is something that we can always push for. I think that was sort of a beautiful that was what we were doing, but I did like the word as executive justice. And is executive justice there today? Judiciary is passing a lot of orders, but on the ground, we are not able to see the executive justice. So we're hoping that much of this work could be used and is being used currently in Anekal and Bangalore urban and Dodbalapura district to push for executive justice and judicial justice as well. With that, yes, like the NGT order said, this year we are building the water quality, both of Anekal and Arkavati Basin. We are building the river flow data. We're generating and translating land use, land change, both from the European satellites, NASA satellites, and our own Indian Bhuvan satellites as well. And to see how does it make sense for the citizens and what insights the citizens can derive to ask the government. And we're also working on building reliable river basin indicators, administrative boundary indicators for water resources with earth observation data, to start with land use, land change, or water extent, or chlorophyll pollution. Much of that we're working with IIT Roorkee, and we've also signed an MOU with RBC College here in Bangalore to do some of this work. With this, thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation. Hope it makes sense.